An attempt to lower the cost of gasoline by repealing Minnesota's law that requires a minimum markup of 8 cents per gallon is making progress in the legislature. Joining me is the Senate author of a bill to eliminate the mandatory price increase, Senator Jordan Rasmussen. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Laws for minimum markups are meant to deter predatory pricing, and a handful of states have them, including Minnesota. What was the rationale for requiring gasoline sales to be marked up in the first place, and why here 8 cents?
The pitch when these laws were originally proposed was that it was going to protect against predatory pricing in the marketplace, basically having gas retailers come in and price way below cost until they drive competition out of the market. What we've seen, though, in the about 40 states that don't have a minimum markup on gasoline is that that behavior just doesn't occur. The Federal Trade Commission, on a bipartisan basis, has opposed these types of laws, including the one that Minnesota has, because it ends up hurting consumers. It costs them more at the pump. And so I think the question that we have as legislators when it comes to the minimum markup on gas is, should our consumer protection laws be there to protect consumers, or are they there to protect the profit margins for petroleum marketers?
Now, this idea has gotten a lot of interest since you introduced it with Dan Wogelmatt in the House several weeks ago. How did it come to you? Where did you get this idea?
Well, during the campaign, I think a lot of us got strong feedback from voters in our community that the price of gas is something that they're really worried about. And there's not a whole lot that the state of Minnesota can do to impact the gas price, but repealing this law is one of those things. And we've seen bipartisan support, both here in the legislature and across other states. Scott Jensen campaigned on this idea as a part of his platform to lower the price of gas. Governor Evers of Wisconsin, who's a Democrat, also campaigned on eliminating their minimum markup law. And then here, both in the House and the Senate, we have bipartisan support. It passed out of the House Commerce Committee. We had a great hearing in the Senate Commerce Committee, and so excited about the bipartisan traction this bill's been getting.
You said at the press conference that the passage of this bill is an issue of economic justice. What do you mean?
Well, one of the interesting things about this law is that it doesn't apply to some of the big retailers. And so if you have a membership at Costco or Sam's Club, if you can afford to shop at those places, you can oftentimes buy your gasoline 20 cents or cheaper per gallon. And so this is just making sure that we're putting all retailers on a level playing field, and that all Minnesotans, regardless of where you buy your gas, that you can have access to cheaper gasoline.
Now, why is it that those big box retailers don't have to abide by this law?
Because they are club stores and they're membership based, they don't publicly post their price, and so that's why the law doesn't apply to them. Another interesting way that some of the larger retailers have gotten around the law is having coupons or other loyalty programs that also don't apply. And so that's actually, we had one small gas retailer over on the western part of the state who wrote a letter to the committee saying that he wants this law repealed so that he can compete with some of the bigger box stores in their community.
So because of coupons or because of membership, there are ways that it's actually not a level playing field with the minimum markup in place.
That's right. Yeah, Costco can price cheaper than other retailers can.
So Minnesota had this minimum markup law until 1984 when it was repealed. It was then reinstated in 2001, so we've had about 22 years with it again. According to the Star Tribune, the University of Wisconsin at Whitewater did a study during that period of time when we, as a state, did not have the minimum markup law. And that study found that the price consumers paid was actually 2 cents more per gallon. What are some of the reasons that you believe that this wouldn't happen again, that these savings would truly be passed on to the consumer?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm glad you brought that study. It was actually paid for by the petroleum marketers in Wisconsin. And I think they also, in that same study, talk about how the vast majority of economists have come to different conclusions, including whether it's been Republican or Democratic administrations at the Federal Trade Commission have said that these laws simply drive up the price for consumers and end up costing them more at the pump. And if you think about just the intuition of it, every industry, every profession would love to have a minimum markup law on the goods and services they offer, because it helps them protect their profit margins, and it helps guarantee them a profit on their product. And so that's why there's been a whole host of research that's been done on this topic. And again, 40 states don't have it, and the Federal Trade Commission and others have said that they see savings when laws like this are repealed.
Now, does this minimum markup apply to diesel as well? I'm one of the few people who actually drives a diesel vehicle, and I would love to see my gas price go down.
It does not apply to diesel sales, which I think is another argument in our favor from those who have said that there will be issues if we repeal this law. We currently don't have it on diesel sales, and I haven't heard a single issue from those who are out selling diesel in the Minnesota market.
Could the repeal of this start gas wars where businesses begin competing against one another to bring in business? And while that level of competition may be good for consumers, could that potentially put some smaller businesses out of business?
There's actually been a lot of research done on this as well, and states that have minimum markup laws versus states that don't, there's no difference in the number of small businesses or gas stations in those states, and so we haven't seen that be a factor in the states that don't have minimum markup laws. I think what you'll see is cheaper gas for Minnesotans, and I'll give an example. In the North Metro, there was a small family-owned gas station that had a competitor across the street report them to the state of Minnesota for selling their gas too cheaply, and they were just simply trying to attract customers, get them into their store, sell them other goods and services that they offered. And so really this is the state of Minnesota going after businesses that are simply trying to give their neighbors and customers a good price on gas.
I'm thinking about small businesses and just wondering if this necessitates that they have to change their business plan. Convenience stores have candy, chips, snacks, sodas. That's kind of where they make their money. They're not making it off the gas. And also then if there's a chain of gas stations, they have a little bit more flexibility in how they're pricing their gasoline. Does this make life harder for a small gas station owner, somebody who doesn't have the margins for risk? Are you concerned about that at all?
So actually the study that the petroleum marketers paid for found that in states with minimum markup laws, you actually didn't see any negative impact on the smallest of gas station retailers. And so it's actually some of the largest retailers in the country that are some of the biggest proponents of keeping minimum markup laws on the books. And again, when we look at states that have this or states that don't, we don't see a difference in the number of small retailers. We don't see a difference in the number of gas stations. Over time, you see more and more of the profits from gas retailers coming from their convenience store items, coming from soda, coming from breakfast sandwiches they're selling, and less from the actual gas. And that's a trend that has taken place with or without these laws on the books.
Finally, before we go, the House version of the bill was moved to the General Register. As you said, the Senate bill was laid over for possible inclusion. There is bipartisan support. So if this bill does become law, when will Minnesotans see lower prices for gasoline?
My hope is that we'd start seeing lower gas prices this summer, and especially that's oftentimes when we see the price of gas go up when there's more demand, when people are traveling for summer vacations. And I think it's going to be really important with the inflation that Minnesotans are feeling across the economy to help them save some money on their gas bill. And so I'm looking forward to getting this bill done this session.
Senator Jordan Rasmussen, welcome to the Senate. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.